With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. When you give them the softest loungewear set, the real gift is this. And this. And this. This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to give a gift that goes beyond. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
My fellow Americans, welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the nation from the hurricane bunker as we begin to batten down the hatches here in Georgia as this hurricane's going to pass over us. We'll find out just how bad it is. So it has wobbled, and now it looks like the eye is going to come pretty much straight over me based on the current projections with winds of 80 to 90 miles an hour. I am presuming we'll be fine. Prayers appreciated. That nothing falls on the house, things like that. We'll see how we shake out over the next 24 hours. Which reminds me, by the way, in all seriousness and candor, if it's Friday and you're hearing this and you're thinking, why are we repeating Thursday's show? It's because of the power and the internet situation. So I've already told the team that my plan obviously is to be on air on Friday. If I can't be on air, and I can't get something recorded for you, then we just have to rerun Thursday's show, and you'll know the hurricane was bad. But I will obviously be back, and you can follow me on social media. In fact, if you text Eric to 33777, you can follow me on Instagram and the like, and you'll be able to see the progress. Now, we have to We gotta get on with the news, and we had the interview between Wednesday Addams and Kamala Harris yesterday, and it was actually it was kind of odd, actually, if you ask me. The whole weird, just weird interview. Now, what do I mean by the weird interview? Well, I want to play you some of the excerpts of this interview between Wednesday Addams and Kamala Harris. Now, if you haven't seen it, it's Stephanie Ruhle, and she was dressed exactly as Wednesday Addams for some weird reason. And she asked such hardball questions of Kamala Harris like this one.
About this. So I just want to ask you yes or no. At any point in your life, have you served 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, working out at McDonald's? Yes or no? That's it.
I have.
Okay.
Such hard questions. We'll get back to why she asked that one. But this is the weird one. And this is the one that struck people. And this is the one, listen, she does need to do more interviews. She absolutely does need to do more interviews. She's picking interviews with the easiest people to do interviews with. Stephanie Ruhle literally was on Bill Maher's show Friday night saying that there's no reason for Kamala Harris to do interviews or to even answer tough questions because nobody really cares anyway. It's her or Trump. That was Stephanie, and that's how she got the interview. It's no coincidence. She gets the interview after she says, she doesn't really need to answer tough questions. This was a softball question. The entire interview from Wednesday Addams was a softball interview. And yet this question was asked by Wednesday Addams to Kamala Harris, who could not answer the basic question.
Control of the Senate. Where do you get the money to do that? Do you still go forward with those plans and borrow?
Well, but we're going to have to raise corporate taxes, and we're going to have to make sure that the biggest corporations and billionaires pay their fair share. That's just it. It's about paying their fair share. I am not mad at anyone for achieving success, but everyone should pay their fair share, and it is not right that the teachers and the firefighters that I meet every day across our country are paying a higher tax than the richest people in our country.
Except corporations aren't really people, are they? They're not really people. And yet, for some reason, it just you think that they need to pay. And this is Even Stephanie Rule, Wednesday Addams, had problems with Kamala Harris's answer. This is her talking to, what's her name, Chris Hayes or whatever on MSNBC.
Work, and one could watch that and say, well, she didn't give a clear, direct answer. That's okay, because we are not talking about clear or direct issues.
What? One can say she didn't give a direct answer, but that's okay because we're not talking about clear, direct issues. Literally. That was the response. And then this with Nicole Wallace on MSNBC.
I do, but here's what's a little tricky. She doesn't answer the question around if the GOP is controlling the Senate, if she can't raise corporate taxes, where is she going to get the money from? To expand the child tax credit and do all the things she wants to do. And she says, we just have to do it.
We just have to do it. Y'all, that's not a good public policy position. That's not a good statement. Where are you going to get the money from if Republicans in Congress choose not to raise corporate taxes? Well, we just have to raise corporate taxes. That was her answer. Well, we just have to raise corporate taxes. That was her answer. That may be her answer, but it's a terrible answer. That we're just going to do it. She can't unilaterally do it. Now, I realize we've got the checks and balances are off in the country these days, but you just simply can't raise taxes unilaterally as president of the United States. There are 6 members of the United States Supreme Court, 9 more likely than not, including Sonia Sotomayor, who will not let the president of the United States unilaterally raise taxes. So where are you going to get the money from? Well, we just have to do it. That wasn't a serious question. Now, back to the start of the interview, though. I want to replay you this. This is the very tough softball first question from Wednesday Addams.
First one, just a fact check. Because your opponent
There is
almost
no little
every
job.
day. Okay,
There's no such thing as a little job.
Okay, fair. Because your opponent almost every day seems to be talking about this. So I just want to ask you yes or no. At any point in your life, have you served 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, working at a McDonald's? Yes or no? That's it.
I have.
Okay.
I have. She's so excited to get that question. You know why? Why Stephanie Rule is asking the question? There is no evidence anyone has been able to find from anywhere that Kamala Harris worked at a McDonald's. There are no photos of first day job. I had some lady, and I actually do think her name was Karen, very angrily email me when I put this up. Well, back then it wasn't digital, it was film. People aren't just taking willy-nilly. I'm sorry, y'all. My family background is not from wealth. And my grandmother kept photo albums. And even my relatives, ancestors, I guess you will, who were not wealthy people, had photos of this relative and that one in their first uniform for their first job. It's one of those milestone moments, those Kodak moments people broke the camera out for with the film that you got developed. The monument, kid got the first real job. They've even got a uniform. My kid went to McDonald's. You're going to take a picture. No photos have come forward of Kamala Harris in a McDonald's uniform. There is no record of Kamala Harris working at a McDonald's. Kamala Harris has patently refused to tell us the location of the McDonald's she claims to work at, and the McDonald's Corporation itself has not been able to uncover evidence that Kamala Harris worked at a McDonald's. And Kamala Harris said she worked at a McDonald's to pay for college and then walked that back. Now, the point here is maybe she worked at a McDonald's. But if it was anyone else on planet Earth, you wouldn't be taking her word for it. You would be inquiring, is this true? But with Kamala Harris, the media's just like, well, of course she worked at a McDonald's. Of course she worked at a McDonald's. Of course. Because she says so. Do you know, back in 2016, just as an example of this, 2016, we had 3 dudes show up at our house to threaten us. didn't like my positions. And that got fact-checked by the local, by reporters. Which is not local reporters, it was national reporters. Now, I did not call the police on these individuals. Didn't call the police on these individuals because one of them I kind of knew, and I just understood they were angry, mad at me, felt betrayed. I really didn't feel super threatened. I mean, they were more, we're going to get you fired and your wife's going to die of cancer because you lost your job, not physical harm to my family. And the national reporters didn't want to believe just my word for it. So I had to provide them in real time after it happens. I had to fire off emails to my boss and say, hey, this just happened at the house. And they had to get security. I had to provide the trail of evidence in real time that this has happened to my house, to me and my family. Therefore, I think I might need security with the timestamps, the emails, and the corroboration from the people that I spoke to in real time and confirmed that it was true. They took that much effort. This happened to me. I am the eyewitness. This happened to me. No, I did not file the police report. But here in real time at like 4 something in the afternoon, I think it was, firing off an email to my bosses and security saying these people just showed up at my house to threaten my family. I don't know what to do. I can't afford private security myself. What do I do? The company had to pay for the private security. I had to give them the emails just to confirm that, yes, in fact, this thing did happen. I wasn't making it up. But when Kamala Harris says she worked at a McDonald's in college, we're just supposed to say, oh, of course she's telling the truth. Maybe she did. That's not really the point of the story. The point of the story is how willing the media is to believe these little details of biography when Kamala Harris says them, but not to believe them when anybody else says them. And that, I think, is very notable. That, I think, is something we should pay attention to, that level of double standard from the American press corps, where if it's Kamala, whatever she wants, whatever she says, she gets. If it's anybody else, well, we need to we can't even trust and verify. We have to distrust and then verify. That's the situation here. The other issue here is she went to one of the most friendly reporters. This reporter was on Bill Maher, practically begging to get an interview, signaling, I'm not going to ask you a tough question. I'm not going to ask you a tough question. Please let me interview you. I'm not going to ask you a tough question. So Kamala Harris says, okay, don't ask me any tough questions. And so she asks an absolutely not tough question of, if Republicans won't raise corporate taxes, where do you get the money? And her response is, well, we have to raise corporate taxes. But if you don't, well, we have to. That was kind of wild. And of course, there is this soliloquy on housing as well.
Small businesses. Why do those biggest corporations and CEOs do that? Because they know those kinds of investments, like in our small businesses, in startups and entrepreneurs, actually strengthens America's economy overall, and everyone benefits. So this is not about bilking anybody, but it is certainly about saying, let's make sure that we create opportunities for everyone to grow wealth. I believe that it is not sufficient, and it should not be our goal to just make sure everyone is working. That should be the baseline. That should be a given. And let's create an economy where people have the ability to buy a home, to start a business, to take a nice vacation from time to time, right?
For people who want to buy a home, yes, getting a $25,000 kicker would be great. But it's not just affording a home. We don't have enough in this country.
You're absolutely right.
And one of the main problems are regulations and rules, strict rules at a local level. How does the federal government cut through all that red tape and get down to, the suburbs of Pittsburgh and say, we're going to have to build some affordable housing here? How do you connect the two?
So you're absolutely right. So across our country, people rightly are concerned about the cost of housing. So it's home ownership, to your point. We need more supply. That is, without any question, part of the solution. Creating more supply under my plan includes creating tax incentives to work with the private sector and home builders. Part of my goal and the plan would be to create 3 million new housing units for rent and for ownership by the end of my first term.
That doesn't answer the question. How does the federal government get local governments to deregulate? That doesn't answer the question. I'm going to throw money at the problem. And if you know anything about the way the federal government throws money at problems, it tends to throw money at problems and it makes the problem worse. She's clueless. She is a vapid walking word salad, nothing else. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation, monitoring this hurricane as it's blowing up. Those of you down in Florida, this thing continues to intensify. It was, based on earlier projections, headed up the north of Tallahassee, basically hovering on the Georgia-Alabama line. The downside for me now is that the projections have shifted quite a bit, and now it looks more and more like it's going to come straight up through where I am in middle Georgia and come through Macon, where I am, and the eye of the storm. The worst side of it is typically the northeast side and the dirty side of it, they say. And, well, it looks like I'm going to be on the west side of the dirt, but I got a lot of friends right around this area who are we're going to get a lot of very high winds in my area. So all that is to say, if you're hearing this on Friday instead of Thursday, I'm live now on Thursday. If you hear it on Friday, it means that the power went out and I'm not able to get my show to you on Friday. We are making arrangements to try to make it happen, but I don't know how this thing's going to be. We're all playing it by ear. The eye is going to come straight over my county, according to the current multi-model ensemble of where the track is going to be. So we're playing it by ear. But if you're in the metro Atlanta area, good news is you're going to avoid the worst of it now. Thank goodness. Okay, we got to move on. When I come back, we're going to talk about Eric Addams, and some of you are going to really hate my guts by the time I'm done with it. But I'll tell you exactly what I think. First, I want to tell you about Americans for Prosperity because they are the largest leading grassroots organization in the country. They are on our side. They believe in small government. They believe in common sense conservative solutions, and they would love to have you on their side. If you would like to volunteer, they've got chapters in almost every state. You go to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. You sign up with Americans for Prosperity. They will make you the smartest member in your circle of friends. They'll give you all the information you need to know what's going on in the country and the common sense conservative solutions for the border, for schooling, for families, for small businesses. They'll teach you how to be an advocate to your next door neighbor, teach you how to knock on doors if you want to do that, teach you how to go to your local government, your state government to advocate for free markets and free people, to advocate for common sense conservative solutions. All you have to do is go to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. Go there. They've got a landing page. Put in your contact info. They'll be in touch with you, and they will make you part of their army of activists, making you the most informed, effective advocate in your circle of friends for common sense conservative solutions. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States from the hurricane bunker. Again, I'm going to be saying this throughout the day today. It is Thursday, and if you hear this on Friday, it means that we have been pounded by the hurricane and was not able to get to you on Friday. I'm going to do my best, however, to make that happen. Just be aware. I got my friend Belinda is filling in for Charlie on the phones today. And Belinda, you just need to be prepared for angry people calling, and my apologies in advance, and don't take their calls because I'm about to make some of you really mad. Do you believe that boys can become girls? Do you? I assume most of you believe not. Why do people on the left believe it's the case? Well, they have their own experts. Now, most of their experts with PhDs, they're not actually biologists. They tend to be sociologists. They tend to be women and gender studies professors, but they got their experts. In the same way that people who believe that vaccines cause autism, they see the correlation in the uptake in autism correlates to the uptick in vaccine responsiveness of the American adults and kids. and they presume, therefore, because autism comes on about the same time, correlation equals causation, and they've got experts. They've got actual medical doctors who believe this, even though it's been widely studied and thoroughly debunked, but you don't trust those experts. You don't trust those experts. The left doesn't trust your experts about biology. They trust their experts about biology. And because they trust their experts about biology, they are epistemically convinced, that is, they are convinced beyond a reasonable certainty that boys can become girls, and good luck convincing them otherwise. And you think they're kind of crazy, don't you? I mean, it is a crazy by faith belief, and that's what it is. There actually is no biology, no science to back up transgenderism. There's none. They have experts. Keep in mind, they do have experts. They've got PhDs, but they don't actually have biology on their side. They don't have science on their side. They have the feels on their side, the feelings on their side. There's no biological evidence, but it doesn't matter. They are epistemically convinced. They are convinced by faith that a boy can become a girl, that a girl can become a boy, that if a girl feels like she is a boy, feels like she doesn't belong in the body, that obviously the solution is genital mutilation and drugs, and she becomes a boy. It's by faith. This is where I twist this. Some of you are behaving just like those progressives who by faith believe boys can become girls. By faith. Because of your distrust in the experts. You are convinced, without any evidence whatsoever, you are convinced by faith, and it is a by faith conviction. You are convinced that Eric Addams, the mayor of New York City, is being prosecuted by the Department of Justice because he has criticized Joe Biden about immigration. Forget the actual accusations. You've got it all figured out yourselves, that it's got to be immigration. I'm actually stunned by the level of insanity on the right that has immediately gone there. And you know what I say all the time, and it's not from me, it was from the late Tim Keller, that you are catechized by those things you surround yourselves with. And some of you have so surrounded yourselves with the hucksters and grifters of the right, you've convinced yourselves that Eric Addams couldn't be indicted for corruption because he's a Democrat. They don't care about that. What they care about is they care about immigration. And Eric Addams has given them a black eye. Never mind that he and Joe Biden were hanging out together last night when the indictment came down. Never mind that he and Joe Biden have a cordial relationship. Never mind that he has excused the Biden administration on this issue and has actually served as a great lapdog for the Biden administration by saying it's Trump's fault, not their fault. They're having to deal with Trump by giving them excuses so he can stand firm on immigration while giving them cover. Never mind all of that. No. Because he's criticized immigration, therefore that's why he was indicted. You people are idiots. Gullible idiots. And I need you to know that you actually are an insane person. You are no different from progressives who believe boys can become girls. If he is indicted, why has John Fetterman not been indicted? John Fetterman says, quote, there is a crisis. We have a crisis at the border, and it can't be controversial that we should have a secure border. John Fetterman has routinely denounced the Biden administration. Eric Adams has excused the Biden administration. John Fetterman has actually attacked the Biden administration and said Trump did a better job. Why hasn't he been indicted? We're hitting the breaking point. We can't support this volume of immigrants. We need something to change. This is a failure at the highest level. That's the Democratic mayor of Denver, Mike Johnson, this year. You've got Vicente Gonzalez, a Texas representative who has attacked him. You've got Brandon Johnson now, the Chicago mayor, who has directly, and again, Eric Adams has excused the Biden administration, saying it's not their fault, it's actually Trump's fault. Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, has actually laid the blame at Joe Biden. Texas Mayor Oscar Leeser, a Democrat from El Paso, also has criticized the Biden administration, where Eric Adams has given them a pass. But you have decided it's got to be immigration because that's what you hear. Because on Fox News and Newsmax and among the grifters and frauds and hucksters of social media, you hear this about Eric Adams from the right, and you've decided the grifters and hucksters who have programmed my brain, they are right. And so without thinking, I must immediately pull the strings and say, it's not actually corruption. Democrats don't care about corruption. They care about immigration, and that's why he's being prosecuted. There are a whole lot of people on the left and among Democrats who have been much more vocal in accusing the actual Biden administration of failure. Eric Adams hangs out with Joe Biden. They were hanging out together last night. But the grifters, the hucksters, and the frauds have told you it's immigration, and therefore you believe it. You are a mind-numbed automaton if you believe that. It's also very useful to the Democrats for you to believe that. Maybe the hucksters, the grifters, and the frauds of the right are actually a Fed op. That's the language they use these days. Maybe they are. Let me explain to you why. Because while you're so focused on, well, actually, it wasn't corruption, it was immigration, what are the actual underlying charges? Underlying charges that, by the way, predate Eric Adams criticizing the immigration situation. You should know that the investigation began before any hint of qualms about immigration. Eric Adams stands accused of taking money from the Turkish government to fund his election campaign, and then was able to bully the New York City government into approving a consulate for Turkey that the Turks wanted, that they were running into dead ends, and Eric Adams is accused of making it possible. And you say, well, that's not very salacious. It's got to be immigration. I want something sexy. And this is where maybe the hucksters, the frauds, and the grifters on the right who've convinced you it's immigration, maybe they're a Democratic psyop on you. Here's why. Because you also have Bob Menendez, a Democrat, who took money from the Egyptians. Gold bars. Eric Adams took money from the Turks. Bob Menendez took money from the Egyptians. And you've got Linda What's-Her-Name, who worked for Kathy Hochul. She took money from the Chinese. The former deputy chief of staff of the governor of New York, she and her husband were laundering money for the Chinese and helping the Chinese, another Democrat. Then you've got that woman, was it Max Boot's wife or whatever? She was a spy for South Korea. She's been indicted for spying for South Korea. All these people on the left. So while you're over here saying, oh, it's got to be immigration, it's got to be immigration, Democrats are like, oh, thank God they think it's immigration. They're not noticing the pattern of Democrats being bought off by foreign governments that the DOJ is prosecuting. Well, why would the DOJ prosecute? Well, you know, it's not actually the Washington Department of Justice. It's the local U.S. attorney who conducted the investigation to Eric Adams. It's the local U.S. attorney's office who conducted into Linda Chin, I think her name is. It was the New Jersey U.S. attorney's office who conducted it. It's at the state level. It's outside the building of the DOJ, and they're prosecuting Democrats for being bought and paid for by foreign governments. And you're over here thinking, well, it's got to be immigration. Democrats are thinking, oh, thank God those grifters on the right are telling you it's immigration. I would sure hate for you to actually look over here and realize that we got all these Democrats getting indicted for taking money from foreign governments. Please don't look over there. Listen to the guys on the right telling you it's immigration. Please believe them, and boys can become girls as well. There are so many people so easily manipulated into getting distracted from what's actually going on here. You've got a deputy chief of staff for the governor, Democratic governor of New York, indicted for being on the payroll for China. You've got the wife of a liberal editorialist of the Washington Post being on the payroll for South Korea. You've got the former senator from New Jersey being on the payroll for Egypt. You've got the current mayor of New York City stands accused of being on the payroll for Turkey. Democrats are just getting bought off all over this country by foreign governments, putting foreign governments ahead of the United States. And my gosh, they sure are thankful for the grifters, hucksters, and frauds of the right convincing you it's got to be Eric Adams speaking out on immigration, and pay no attention to all the other Democrats who actually blamed Joe Biden. Eric Adams has been a useful idiot for the Biden administration. He stands up and says, we have a problem. Our cities are overwhelmed with migrants. We're running out of money. We got to do something, but it's Donald Trump's fault. It's not Joe Biden's fault. Joe Biden's just in this situation because of Donald Trump's failures, and these Republicans are trying to blame Joe Biden, but these homeless migrants were here because of Donald Trump. And you guys have been convinced, he's getting indicted for that. And you're just distracted. Now, not all of you. Mostly my audience is smart, but I'm stunned by the number of people on the right who have this epistemic by faith belief that it must be. It just must be. Last night, the word of the indictment came down and immediately, it's not actually what they say it is. It's actually because of immigration. That's the ticket. Well, why weren't these other people who directly blamed Joe Biden and or Democrats being, well, because Eric Adams is the big dog. He's the big fish. Okay, the Democrats sure are glad you've decided to make that connection instead of the more obvious one that we've now got 4 people of the left, 3 of them elected or 2 of them elected officials, 1 of them a highly appointed official, 1 of them a highly connected person, all of whom on the left, and they're all getting bought and paid for by foreign governments to push foreign agendas instead of American agendas. And you got these people on the right saying, that's not it at all. That's not it. No, these Democrats are good patriots. They're just, they don't want to go after immigration. Oh my gosh. The level of 5-dimensional chess stupidity from some of these people. It is no different than the idiots on the left who believe that boys can become girls, and they've got the experts to prove it. And meanwhile, everybody on the right who's saying it's got to be it's just, it's got to be immigration, Erickson. I don't trust the DOJ. I don't trust the FBI. Therefore, it must be this thing the grifter on the internet told me it is. Democrats are, they are so happy y'all are listening to these people so that you haven't connected the dots to all the foreign governments buying and paying Democrats, buying them off. Eric Adams stands accused of taking money from a foreign government knowingly and willfully to run his political campaign for office to get elected and then curry favors with a foreign government. And it looks like it was deeply known with his administration, and others are going to be charged as well for this scheme. Eric Adams as well, the FBI tried to get his phone well before all these immigration criticisms. And not only did he not have his phone with him that day, he turned it in the next day and had changed the password and made it harder to get into. Says he did it because he didn't want his staff deleting sensitive text messages. Yeah. Right. Sure. This unhealthy thinking of the grifters, the hucksters, and the frauds on the right is no different than the unhealthy thinking on the left of people who think boys can become girls. And so many people have fallen for it. And, by the way, you can't convince them. They're going to be deeply insulted at me telling them that they're gullible idiots. But they are. They're gullible idiots. They're also very useful idiots for the left. You can convince them of this thing over here that's not true so that you don't actually pay attention to the truth. We're now up to 4 prominent members of the left who have been bought and paid for by foreign governments to advance foreign agendas in the United States. And the Democrats just think they're lucky stars. Y'all are listening to people on the internet saying that's not it at all. It's got to be immigration. This is why we're in the mess we're in and why we can't have nice things. Now, let me tell you about Vision Computers. You can't have nice things from Vision Computers. You can have great computers from Vision Computers. They'll build you a computer, and then you get their tech support for free. So if you're a small business, if you're an independent contractor, if you're in the gig economy, and you need a computer that's not going to let you down, you want to get Vision to build it for you because they're going to save you money and give you something that lasts so you don't have to constantly update. And then they're going to give you their award-winning 5-star service for free. So if you ever have a question, if you need help with your email, if you need help with your printer, anything, you get a special number, you call them 15 seconds or less, they give you the answer. All you have to do is call them at 404-COMPUTE. Now, let's say you don't have a computer from Vision, but you really want their 5-star service. For $179 a year, if you call 404-COMPUTE, you can sign up and you get a special number to call 15 seconds or less. You get the answer to the problem. They can even remote in many cases and fix the problems for you. It's 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputer.com. And if you tell them Eric Erickson sent you, you'll save even more money. And here's the thing. Doesn't matter where you live in the United States. They can take care of you. 404-COMPUTE. Good morning, afternoon, whatever it is. It's just dark and rainy outside, and we're not even getting into the real hurricane weather yet here in middle Georgia. I got to tell you guys what happened to me last night. So I had to go evacuate my radio equipment. I've moved back into the bunker of my house. I haven't broadcast from here in over a year now. But given I didn't want to, this afternoon, things are going to get bad, and I didn't want to try to drive home from my office in what's coming, so decided I'd move everything into the house. I've got battery backups. Should be okay by and large. Well, on the way home, there's a car up ahead of me. I can see it's got its hazards on. It's off the emergency lane. Its hood is up. Then I see a car in front of me swerve. And there's a car next to me. I can't swerve, and there's a retaining wall on the other side of me. And I realize that looks like a muffler in the road. I hit that thing and immediately knew damage was done. And I flipped the sensor over to watch the tire pressure gauge, and it starts going down 35, 32, 31, 28. I get off at the next exit. There's a Waffle House. By the time I get to the Waffle House, I'm less than 15 PSI. By the time I park and stop, I'm at 0. Flat tire. Thankfully, only one of them was flat. Now, here's the problem. I know how to change a flat tire. So I tell my son, you're going to get a lesson. Open the glove box. We have a tire lock. We're going to need it. We're going to teach you how to change the tire. The rain had not yet started. So he opens the glove box. He gets out the tire lock, get in the back, open the hatch, pull out the jack, and then there's the pole that you stick into the jack and also that you stick in to the back to lower the tire. That's not there. Now, I have never had a flat in this vehicle before. I've never had to use the jack in my life. And the jack is gone. The key piece of the jack is gone. So I got to call OnStar, call my daughter. She comes and picks up my son, and they head home. They got to go do grocery shopping before the storm hits. So I sit at the Waffle House. Thankfully, it's a good Waffle House. It's the one we eat at. And had to sit there and wait for 2 hours for AAA to show up. They finally showed up, got the tire changed. Thankfully, they were able to. They weren't sure they were going to without that missing piece of the jack, but they were able to get it done. So got it off to the tire place this morning to get everything repaired. Was back before the show started, but it was a rough night. It was not a good night. And then after midnight, I'm sound asleep, and AAA calls and says, we're still waiting for someone to come change your tire. We're sorry it's taken so long. I'm like, what are you talking about? One, I'm asleep in my own bed, and two, they changed it 2 hours ago. This hour of the program brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan. Wherever you are nationwide, if you're buying a building, they can help you. Call them or get their contact info, firstlibertyga.com, firstlibertyga.com. When we come back, we're on the verge of losing the House of Representatives. There is one person who might be able to turn the tide for the GOP in the House, and Mike Johnson is begging Donald Trump to please do a fundraiser.